evening had taken on the familiar softness of light from the lamp illuminating the familiar living room. The photographs on the walls, like imprinted hearts, held memories, each with a story to tell. But today their brightness seemed dim, as if they were losing their essence. I'm Mary Stone, and if someone asked me how my life was going, I wouldn't hesitate to say it was stable. But now every step felt like a risk, like I was balancing on the edge of a precipice. It all started with a sudden knock on the door. I wasn't expecting anyone, and that unsettling sound made me uneasy. Putting on my cardigan, I walked to the door, and when I opened it, I saw Sam. My son. He stood on the threshold, his usually energetic appearance shrunken, as if he had become smaller than he was, a complete reflection of inner pain. The athletic figure I'd managed to lead him to success over the years now seemed more vulnerable than ever. I noticed how the pale light gave his bright blue eyes a hazy look. He took a step inside, and my heart clenched. Sam had always been independent and strong, the true protector he'd become in all the years we'd overcome hardships as a couple after his father Richard had left us. The moment I saw him, it was obvious to me that something had gone wrong. We sat down in the kitchen, and the environment was filled with an anxious glare of silence. The hum of the refrigerator was the only accompanying sound in this abyss of despair. I poured us tea, but Sam didn't touch his mug. His hands clutched it tightly, as if it could save him from an invisible threat. It took a few agonizing minutes before we got over the lingering silence, and I couldn't help myself when I asked him what had happened. His gaze shifted to me, and in it I saw the same emotions I'd felt years before: confusion, betrayal, fear. Suddenly, he was not only a son to me, but also a mirror reflecting my own depressed feelings. He spilled it all out into the light, and I learned about the girl who filled his life. With hair as red as fire, she was sewn into his heart. She made him happy until she betrayed him. By cheating on him, she had swept away the extra hope from his shoulders, leaving only bitterness. The moment he knew it, disaster struck for him. Sam, who had always seemed invincible, was plunged into an internal struggle. When Sam was 8, I remember him starting to earn money with all his stubbornness. He worked in a restaurant selling pizzas, later started coaching youth and ran his own gym. He had always felt the urge to be self-sufficient, but now the ridiculous and ruthless reality came crashing down on him, shocking him. His hopes had taken a tumble, and that day was a day he would remember for the rest of his life. Sitting beside him, I could only remain silent as I watched his young pride decay in his hands. Past events came crashing down on us, creating static, reminders of the pain we endured when his father left. That night, as his vulnerability reminded me of my own suffering, I felt myself becoming his defense again. I couldn't let him be alone in this darkness. Sam lowered his head and, as if demanding more than words of comfort from me, wanted me to pull him out of this trap. I remembered how exhausted I'd been myself when Richard left, how hard it was to pull myself back together. I had become a rock for him, and he had become my understanding, a solid foundation. We talked about the past, about his father, about dreams and disappointments. Our bond became strong again, despite the hardships that separated us. In the unity of our suffering, we began to rewrite the rules. I remembered his childhood efforts to create his own path and realized that he must now find his own path to healing. Sam was still there after that terrible night, and I could feel his pain permeating the atmosphere like a storm cloud veiling the eyes of hope. He sat with his head down, and it was hard for me to look at him, knowing how deeply his loss had hurt him. Every breath that escaped his chest was filled with despair, and I knew I had to do everything I could to support him. I wrapped my arms around him, letting my love and care wrap around him like a soft blanket. My hand gently stroked his back as I searched for words that might ease his suffering just a little. I could see how hard it was for him to deal with the bitterness of betrayal, how he was tormenting himself inside. He listened to his inner voice, which reminded him that he was worthy of love despite her loss. With each passing moment, I felt my own resolve grow stronger. I will not let him be torn apart in this darkness. He needs to know that there is still light and love in his life, especially from me, his mother. I wanted him to realize that he is not alone in his suffering, and even though his world is upside down right now, we can learn to heal and move forward together. As I watched him slowly lift his gaze and look at me, I saw the same hope that caps along with the grief. In that moment, I realized, we had begun a new journey, and though it would not be easy, we would make it together. Sam has found the strength to start again, and I will be there for him, supporting his steps, and giving him back his faith in himself and the future. It was all behind me as I sat in the semi-darkness of the living room, surrounded by a thick silence, only the moonlight filtering in, creating mysterious shadows on the floor. I tried to suppress the storm of emotion that was tearing at my soul, but no words could assuage the suffocating guilt that my attempt to protect Sam had caused him torture. Tilting my head, I suddenly realized I couldn't take much more. I stood up, staring at the bottle of wine on the table. In every sip I took, I hoped to find solace. Filled with determination, I headed into the kitchen to pour myself a glass. Sam was magnetically attracted again. He was sitting on the couch, but now his face was illuminated, reflecting the very lunar aura that creates the atmosphere of a fairy tale. This immersion in semi-darkness seemed to cut us off from the outside world. I accepted the seat next to me, feeling the tension hovering in the air. The wine quickly smoothed the edges of my tension, allowing my heart to open. Sam started talking about his girlfriend, about how he dreamed of proposing to her. Every look he gave me piercing hints of loss, of the unfairness of what was happening. I could feel his bitterness burning my soul, and each new detail he shared left a maelstrom of emotions inside me. How could she hurt you like that? That question clenched in my chest, but I couldn't say it out loud. Instead, I just listened, absorbing his words like a sponge. His pain was my pain, his love, deceived and twisted, mirrored my own fears. Ever since he told me about his girlfriend, the thread between us had changed drastically. That evening, it became increasingly clear that our hearts were beating in unison, but our fears kept us from fully realizing it. I felt like a lover and a sinner at the same time, an intersection of feelings that brought me out in confusion. As the clock rolled away the time, I rose and went to my room, full of uncertainty and longing. Night enveloped me, and as I lay in bed, unable to sleep, thoughts of Sam swirled through my mind. I felt the longing that came like a wave, but I tried to push it away. After a few long hours, unnoticed by our urges, I fell asleep. But the sleep was short-lived. Suddenly I heard a light knock on the door. My heart beat faster. It was him. Sam walked in slowly, his eyes reflecting all that was left unspoken. He hesitated on the threshold, unsure of what to do, but his broken emotions spoke far more than words. He sat down on the edge of the bed, his breathing heavy, full of inexplicable passion and anxiety. Then, pulling himself together, he quietly asked me to lie down beside him. I felt the excitement in my body as he touched my skin, like the touch of an alchemist working magic. Sam searched my eyes for permission for what was coming. His hand wrapped around mine, and the touch was so strong and gentle at the same time that I opened myself up to every possible feeling. He gently touched the straps of my pajamas, his fingers sliding over my shoulder, lifting them like a spell cast, as if our space together had become sacred territory. I met his gaze determined, full of the kind of adoration that makes your heart sink. Sam made me feel desirable, his strong hand pulling down the straps, revealing my breasts, and I felt like he was opening the door to my soul. Each of his touches filled the emptiness that life had given us. When he touched my lips with the very tips of his fingers, he paused, as if gazing into eternity. I could feel his breathing becoming more frequent, indicating the same unbearable passion that was burning me. The moment our lips met, everything around us disappeared. I knew it wasn't just physical intimacy. We became one, surrendering to the wave of emotion that washed over us. Every breath he took, every gentle touch provoked a whisper in my soul, the truth that in the midst of chaos, we found our sanctuary in each other's arms. And as difficult as it was for us, this moment witnessed our love that illuminated the darkness against all odds. We were willing to go through hell to meet again in this paradise, pushing away all the fears that were expanding in our minds. In the end, it wasn't the pain that defined us, but the love that got us through it.